before I was not connected. As you said, we were never taught to be connected. We were never educated about it. And now I'm like, oh, I'm feeling, a little bit on edge, or I feel a little bit bloated, or, it does automatically, without anything else, connect you to where you are in your cycle. I can look at my app and say, oh, wow, yeah, I'm due for my period in 2 days. That explains why I'm feeling the way I'm thinking, which is also a great way to just make sure you're not sick or something weird is happening. Like, oh, this totally makes sense.
Welcome to this episode of The Well Drop, our mini drop takeaways. That is a recap on our past interviews. Today, we'll be diving into our conversation with Elix Healing and all things related to your cycle. I think creating a cycle lifestyle is really important in today's day, especially for our generation. We're in our 40s, and it's not something that we were taught. And I'm a firm believer in empowering ourselves to learn more about our bodies, and then also to pass that down and teach our children about it as well, because there's so much wisdom within us, and we just have to learn how to tap into it. And I think that what Elix is doing is beyond incredible. Our three biggest takeaways that we'll dive into is really about the importance of connecting to your body. And in order to do that, with journaling, which we'll get into in a minute, about an empowered cycle, how to honor your cycle, and also like herbs to take that will be tailored to your needs and symptoms. So, Dina, starting with the importance of connecting to your body and journaling your symptoms, I really like the idea of writing things down before you even get into the apps. I think it just creates this habit of you actually, like for me, every month, I still do it. I do both apps and notes, but I started with notes. Open up your phone, I track my days and I count them. And I think if you start doing that monthly, it just becomes routine and it starts to feel normal. It does not feel like a job. Because I think until I would even try to get pregnant, I didn't pay attention to my cycle. I think so many people are on birth control or they have an IUD, they don't even have a cycle. So even if you don't have a cycle, just tracking like when the moon cycles are, because there are things that you can do to sort of hack your body that's in connection to the moon. Do you track
Yeah.
your cycle, Dina?
I do. I have never written down, but I do use the apps, and I have since my gynecologist recommended it. But that was after I had children, and so in the last 10 years, and I found it to be incredibly helpful because before I was not connected, as you said, we were never taught to be connected. We were never educated about it, and now I'm like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit on edge, or I feel a little bit bloated, or I it does automatically, without anything else, connect you to where you are in your cycle. I can look at my app and say, oh, wow, yeah, I'm due for my period in 2 days. That explains why I'm feeling the way I'm thinking, which is also a great way to just make sure you're not sick or something weird is happening. Like, oh, this totally makes sense. And it is, and we're going to get into this next for our second takeaway, but it's extremely empowering to be connected in that way because it enables you to give your body what it needs and at the moment that it needs it. And I'm very grateful that we live in a time where we're talking about that, and as you said, hopefully teaching the next generation as well.
What app do you like to use?
I used a free, I don't even know the name. If you Google period tracker, I think it's called. I mean, very basic, but it's enough. It doesn't need to be complicated. It's very easy. You put it in, a period started, period ended. It gives you the option to journal on the app how you're feeling, what symptoms you're having, and optionally. And I think it's incredibly helpful. And it's incredibly helpful to track things like I had more cramping this month, more bleeding, less, because you can also see how your lifestyle is impacting your cycle. So if you've had a stressful month or if you've traveled, I find that when I travel, my body is thrown off. You can understand what throws your body out of whack. It's an incredible indicator for how well you are doing health-wise. And so I can have a sense like, oh, okay, I was eating gluten this month. Maybe I really
Not a
shouldn't be doing that.
not a good idea. Yeah,
Not a good idea.
I think it helps you to sort of be a little bit more patient with yourself
Mhm.
when first just you start with the tracking of your cycle, and then there's, 4 different phases of your cycle. So I always believe in things in levels of like start with the tracking, just get aware. Then next, okay, let's learn about the different phases because within each phase, like you mentioned, sometimes it's okay to like indulge in those carbs on the back half of your cycle. And so instead of beating yourself up, like I just had a call with my best friend. She's like, "Oh, I just ate 2 donuts." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I just had chocolate covered pretzels." We all have our moments. And instead of just beating yourself up and, I think we're always so negative to ourselves, just say, "All right, is that time of month?" And like, I'm allowed to. And it's okay that I craved it for a reason. And I thank God indulged in it and not to beat yourself up about it. And then
Yep.
also when it comes to parenting or work, there's different times, like you said, about if you're moody or you're tired, to know that that is in line with your cycle. And instead of just keep pushing for the caffeine, just you can learn to create that space of, okay, I'm going to need a little bit more rest this week. And you just don't overbook your schedule and don't create, dinners back to back. And then also when it comes to your workouts, to know the back half of your cycle, not to push for those hit classes and maybe do something more restorative, yoga, or just go for a walk.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Um,
think that leads us to our third takeaway, which is the combining of Eastern and Western medicines. And when we talk about Eastern medicine, a lot of it is just understanding there is a yin and a yang in everything, which is what we talk about on the episode. And it's okay to let both of those things be a part of your life when they need to be part of your life. And I find that to be very empowering and also, again, connected the lifestyle choices you make and how they impact the cycle is very, very important. And we talk about the 6 pillars, which listen to the episode for them, but the 6 pillars of lifestyle choices, including sleep and stress and all of that, that impact our cycle. That is all within our control. So that's empowering to know. It's not something that is out there that you have no control over. It has to do with your lifestyle. It has to do with what you're putting into your body, and always a great reminder.
Yeah, and I like that she has a quiz. I don't know why I'm always a sucker for a good quiz online that you can take her quiz and it kind of can analyze, what you're feeling and going through and then tell you. I like that all of her herbs are natural herbs. I
Yeah.
think the more natural things are, the more your body can respond to them. And that is just a great option. She's making it, super accessible. She's really thoughtful in everything that she's done and that before going, I think most doctors, they're just naturally going to give something more on the synthetic side unless you're going to sometimes your acupuncturist may not be a hormone specialist. So there's
Oh,
also finding that like the right person to help guide you based upon your symptoms and give it a try. Also, seed cycling is great too. I mean, I've been seed cycling for a long time, and it's really just a matter of there's certain, seed combinations to take in the beginning half of your cycle and some to take on the back half of your cycle. And just by adding that in, it helps to mitigate some of those PMS symptoms when the time comes. Which I think, depending on your body, like for me, as I've gotten older, I never had cramping. Now I'll sort of sometimes have cramping, but since seed cycling, it kind of went away. But now I can feel when I'm ovulating. I never knew when I was ovulating. I wish I did when I was trying to get pregnant. I don't know about you, but I had no idea. I mean, I just
well,
was going off of the numbers. I had some app to tell me, but now
who knew that the color of the blood of your menstrual cycle matters? No idea
that
until this past year. I think that's fascinating that the color of your blood makes a difference, and is an indicator of how healthy you are generally and how your system is functioning. I think it's fascinating, and I think, again, as we said, a great reminder to pay attention to what your
yeah.
body's telling
And
you.
not to be, I mean, even you just saying that sometimes gave me like a little cringe of like, oh, it sounds so gross. And I
Oh, I
think
love
people
it.
start wearing, a period cup or a disc, you start to be able to actually connect to it and see it. Because before, if you're wearing a pad or a tampon, you're just like pulling it out and dumping it. You're not analyzing it. So, sort of, I think it's great to shift that narrative of like really us knowing our body literally inside and out And it may make you feel uncomfortable. It still sometimes can make me uncomfortable. I love that you're so good, Dina, about it. But I am a work in progress. But I'm doing it really because I want my daughter for it to be so normal for her and to not even think twice. And I do see the younger generation, like you said, you even see it with your daughter's, generation, but even people who introduced me to cups back in the day, they were in their 20s and I was in my late 30s. It's no big deal to them. So if you just start out young, I think you don't even think twice, and it's sometimes harder to, change when you're a little bit older, but it is possible, and it is so liberating when you do. I think it's so fascinating to just learn about your body and then be able
Yep.
to sort of work with it and tweak it and maximize like what our potential is.
Yeah. Yeah. So thrilled to have Elix on the show, and definitely recommend taking their quiz. It's eye-opening.
Yes, and if you wanna hear more about her pillars, definitely tune in to the episode. And for any friend that is, dealing with some, any sort of menstrual symptoms, definitely share with a friend and hopefully it can help them too.
Audio Jungle.